Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name is Raymond, and in this video I'm taking a look at Mindspace by Nao Shimamura, published by Allplay, who were kind enough to give me a copy to review. Now, before I open up the box and set up the game and explain the rules and share my thoughts on the game, I'd like to ask you to please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're a subscriber to my channel, you're an absolute legend, because that really does help the channel grow. Also, please check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below. Patreons to my channel get early access to all of my videos, access to Patreon exclusive content, their name in the credits, and you also save up for exclusive goodies such as the BGH pin. And with that out of the way, let's open up the box and set up a game. To set up a game of Mindspace, you give every player one of these brain boards, and they have an A side and a B side, which is a little bit more complex. But for your first game, it is recommended to play with the A side, and of course every player uses the same side of the board. You also give every player a scoreboard, which has the points you can score on it, and all of that is explained on the back in these bits here. So make sure to familiarize yourself with scoring all of these colors before you start playing. Also keep all the dry erase markers nearby within easy reach of all the players. Also give every player one of these reference cards. They have all the reminders of how to play on one side and all 17 different shapes that are in the game on the other side. So if you have any spare cards left, if you're not playing with 5 players, you can grab one as a reference as well. Shuffle the pursuit cards. These are 17 cards with all of these 17 shapes. So each shape is only in this deck once. Shuffle that deck and deal out 5 cards face up to the table and 1 card face down. Then you take the goal cards. There's pink ones, blue ones, and yellow ones, and there's 5 of each, and just randomly draw 1 of each color. You can shuffle them, but they're double-sided, so I just randomly pick 1 of each, and you put those in the middle of the table. And you put those cards face up with the side that has the double value in the bottom right corner. Also take all 5 dice and place them within easy reach of all players, and you can use the dice to determine who gets to play first, and then you're ready to play. Let's explain the rules. The goal of the game is, of course, to score as many points as you can by filling in shapes into your brain here on your brain board, and by filling up space you can score points by following the rules on the back of this board. So I just grabbed another board here, and here you can see all of these different colors, and it explains how that works. So for example, you have the brain sections here, which is this icon here, and that represents, of course, these 5 sections of the brain. If you fill an entire section and you cannot fill these gray matter spaces here, those can be colored in but are considered filled. And the outer sections are worth 10 points each, and the inner section is worth 5 because it's smaller. Next, you can score points by getting these goal cards achieved. So for example, here this yellow one is called Stressed Out, and it says fill the 4 corners. It has a little graphic here on the bottom that tells you that you just simply need to fill the 4 corners on your brain board with a shape. Just have those filled in, and the first person to achieve that will get 13 points, and if 2 people manage to achieve that in the same turn, they both get the 13 points, in this case the higher value. And then any players who achieve that afterwards will get the lower value. So once somebody has achieved this for the first time, you flip it over and you'll only see the lower value left there in the corner. So you have one of those goals for the 3 colors here, which correspond with these 3 boxes. So you can fill those in as soon as you score them. The next, the purple bar here, will score points for each purple space that is adjacent to an orange space. So you count those adjacent spaces on your board like it says here, you fill that number in, you multiply that by 2, and you fill in the final score there. The orange scoring here is called friendship, and simply means that every time you draw an orange shape on your map, you cross off one of these and you score the next higher value. So the more orange shapes you get, the more points you can score with a maximum of 20, so that's 5 shapes. The pink one symbolizes romance, and at the end of the game, for each pink shape that you have drawn, find every instance of that same shape drawn in a non-pink color, and you score 1 point per shape in those matching non-pink shapes. The blue one is self-improvement, and every time you color a space blue in a brain section that doesn't already have a blue space, you cross off the leftmost negative points here. So every time you have a blue space in any of the sections of the brain, you can cross one off. You can even draw a shape that crosses through multiple shapes, because you can draw over the fat lines here. So that is just to indicate the sections, but you can draw however you want. So you could potentially put a shape on 3 sections at a time and then cross off 3 boxes there. And then finally, you also lose points for empty spaces in the brain. So you look for the section of the brain that has the most empty spaces, you count those spaces, and those are your negative points. So it is good to spread out those empty spaces throughout the brain. And finally, there's the green section here, which indicates money. That doesn't score any points unless stated otherwise on one of the goal cards, but because it doesn't have a box next to it here. But these are used in a different way, which I will explain in a bit. Now the game lasts 12 rounds, and since there are 17 cards with 17 different shapes and 6 of them are laid out already, at the end of the turn you will flip over the rightmost card and you put it on this stack. You move all of these to the right like this, and then you flip over a new shape like so. So once this deck is completely empty, you will have played 12 rounds, and then you finish the final round and then you start scoring. So the first player to go takes the dice and rolls the dice like so, and then you place those dice on the corresponding spots of these 6 cards, starting with the 1 being next to the stack, of course. So this is 1, 2, 3, so 3 is here. Then we have a 4, which is this card, and then we have 2 6s, which is here. So you can have multiple dice next to a card. You just simply follow 1 through 6, the numbers that you rolled. Then all players get to use the results of that roll. So you simply pick one shape, or you pick a color that you want to draw in, and you draw that corresponding shape in that corresponding color on your brain. Now your first shape can be drawn anywhere you want, but the next shapes always have to touch an already drawn shape orthogonally, so not diagonally. That doesn't count. So a side has to touch. And of course also multiple players can choose the same shape and the same color. You just have to share these dry erase markers. You can also not draw a shape of the same color adjacent to another shape of that color. And again, they can touch diagonally because that is not considered adjacent. When drawing a shape, all these shapes can be rotated or even mirrored. They must also fit completely inside the boundaries of the brain, and they cannot cross through these gray areas. And you can also always draw a 2x1 shape, so that's that shape over there, in any color instead of the shape shown on the cards. So, well, these are of course already limited to a 2x1 shape because they rolled 6s. But if I want a 2x1 shape in pink or blue or purple, I can do that as well. So for example, maybe I want to draw this shape. So I take the corresponding pink dry erase marker, and since it's the first turn, I can draw it wherever I want. But maybe I want to try and fill those 4 corners here and get those sweet 13 points. So I might want to draw it in one of the corners. So that's 4 spaces here and one space there. There you go. And I just color that in like so. And that is my first shape. And if you make a mistake, all of these markers have a little eraser here, so you can just erase your mistake and redo it. So then once everybody has chosen and drawn a shape, like I said, you flip over the last card, you take all the dice back, of course, give that to the next player, you move all these cards over to the right, and you flip over a new card. And bear in mind that all these shapes are different. The reference card is here. There's 17 different shapes. One of them you will never see because one of them is already turned down at the start of the game. So you'll have to keep that into account when drawing in shapes. Because once one of these shapes is gone, it's gone forever. So I mentioned earlier the money here in the green. So every time you draw a green shape, so let's say a shape was rolled in green here. Let's just put this one here for now. So this was a green 4, which means that was this shape. I can draw that shape again. So maybe I did. Now again, the other shapes you draw have to touch an already drawn shape, but I can mirror or flip it or however I want. So I could, for example, put this one over here like so. So I get closer to this corner, which I really want to fill. So I draw it in right here, like so. Every time you draw a green shape, you get to color in green one of these coins right there. And you'll notice that the first spot here on the scoreboard is already colored in green. So every time you draw a green one, you get more and more coins. Now you never erase the green from the card again if you are spending coins, because that's what they are for, but you cross them through. There's one black marker, so you can use that to cross off these boxes or to cross off the coins after using them. So let's see what they do. There's a 1, 2, and a 3 icon here at the bottom. So that means if I cross off one coin, I can fill in a black spot with the black marker, which is just one square, anywhere I want to fill in a space. So I could do that. I could spend one and just cross that off and then perhaps fill in this corner right here. So I have another corner filled towards that goal, which is great. So once I do that, I cross off one of the coins that I have colored green. And I can, of course, also cross off this already colored green coin. You also gain a coin every time you fill in one of the 5 sections of your brain completely. You cannot gain more coins than there are on the scoreboard, of course, that's the maximum, but you can spend them. So the first one we already covered. You can also spend 2 coins to draw any shape on the available cards right there, 1 through 5, in any color. And that does not allow you to draw an extra shape. So instead of picking one of the dice like this, so maybe there was a 2 here and maybe there was a 3 here. So instead of picking what is available, you can pick any shape and draw it in any color for 2 coins. Of course, adhering to the rules of placement and not coloring another shape of the same color adjacent to another shape of the same color. But for 3 coins, you can draw an additional shape. So you draw an additional shape matching one of the dice assigned to it using a color you have not already used this turn. So that basically allows you to draw an extra shape, but you are still restricted by the dice colors. So for example, if I just drew this green shape here, like I did here, then I can draw it again, or any of these other ones, just not the green one, because I already used that one, but I could draw this one, or this one as an extra shape this turn in those colors. And that's it. So at the end of the game, you count up all of the points that you scored, you fill them in here, you get the negative points, if any, and then you count up the total. And of course, the person with the most points wins the game. And if there's a tie, then tied players share the victory. Those are all the rules. Let's go to my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on Mindspace by Allplay. Let's start with the components. So you get a compact box, and I really like these type of boxes from Allspace. They have a whole range of games in the same compact shape of box, and that's really good. I like small boxes because they don't take up that much space on my shelf. And all the components, of course, fit neatly inside. You've got your dry erase boards for your Mindspace, which is double-sided. There's an A side and there's a B side with a bit more complex shapes and some difficult, a little bit more difficult to fill those up. And you have your scoreboard, and it has all the rules basically here. You can cross them off as you play, and they are explained in more detail on the back. And everything is dry erase here, all of these boards. So, you know, you can use your dry erase pens to fill in, of course, the shapes and then wipe them out again after playing. Or if you make a mistake, you just wipe it off with this little eraser here. Now, I did find that you have to erase all of your games, basically your boards, quickly after you finish the game and you've tallied your score and you know who's the winner, because it does dry up a bit. And I left it out after one game. It just said, don't bother wiping it all off. I'll do that later, you know, with a wet cloth or something. And we continued playing another game. And then afterwards, I tried it with a wet cloth and I could not get it off. I needed to actually use a dry paper towel, and I had to rub really hard to get it off. So don't wait too long. And a paper towel actually works a lot easier than these tiny little erasers. This is great for, you know, correcting something if you made a mistake, and that just works. But yeah, paper towel right after the game, I would recommend doing that, but otherwise it just works really nicely. I did find that the purple marker is really hard to see. It's a very, very thin purple that's barely visible on your board. All the other colors are very bright, but the purple one could have been brighter. There's also a black one, which is great for keeping score or for crossing off your coins if you use them. So that's also included. And everybody, of course, uses the same pens. There's only one set of each, but that's fine. You pass them around. And, you know, since you roll these dice, which are also pretty nice, they're big and chunky with slightly rounded corners, and they roll nice, and you put those dice on the corresponding matching cards. So you have a 1 here and a 5 there and a 2 here. And people will often pick different shapes, so you also have a different color, so you don't have to fight over, you know, who gets the which color. And of course you can wait a second when somebody's filling in their board, so that's not too big of a problem. So the components are pretty good. Also the cards are of a very nice and decent card quality. Then the artwork is really cool. I like it. I love the way the box looks. And again, that is something that I like about most of these smaller Allplay games. They have really nice looking boxes, really nice art. And I do like that this kind of resembles a squarish brain, of course, but you have some synapses here and yeah, gray matter, if you will. So that looks pretty cool. And I also like the theme because you've got all of these goals that you're gonna want to fulfill for extra points, of course. And yeah, they are kind of thematic in a way. And they also have basically made every color a theme. Now, I don't really remember what is what, but yeah, they have them on the back here. So orange is friendship. Purple is hobbies, green is finances, of course, money, pink is romance, and green is blue is self-improvement. And of course, you don't want to have empty spaces. You want to spread out those empty spaces as much as you can so that every part of your brain has some of those aspects in it. And I kind of like that. It's still an abstract game in the end where you're filling your Tetris shapes. And that is in itself a lot of fun. But yeah, I kind of like the theme. It's cleverly designed. So the gameplay then is a lot of fun. I love roll and write games. I love roll and write games that use the Tetris shapes where you have to fit them in and you're trying to fulfill those goals to get as much points as you can. You're trying to be the first one to have those goals. And everybody is of course going to try and do that, especially the ones with the higher point value. So you're constantly looking, what are they doing? What are they doing? And maybe I should take this one, fill as many spots as I can, and try to get many colors and many sections of the brain, if that is a condition that scores points. So there's a lot of things to look at, and I really enjoyed that. It's quite competitive, although you don't have to constantly look at the other players. You can just focus on your own board and see how far you get, but you do want to be the first to get at least a couple of those goals. And if you get them at the same time, you both score the higher value, so that's fine. And yeah, I also like you have these reminders, so that's really good. You have a card with the reminders, which helps during gameplay, and also all the shapes are on the back here, and every shape is in the deck only once. So that is also very important to remember. If you have a shape that you want somewhere, use it while it's on the table, because they move every turn and at some point they're gonna be gone. So use it when you can, otherwise it'll be gone. So that's also a nice factor that I like in this game. There's a solo mode, so you get one card with the solo rules, which is also a nice reference. So you can just try and get as high a volume as you can, point score as you can. So that is really fun as well. It's good that it is included. Not all games do that, of course. Replayability, I think, is really good because all of those gold cards, there's 5 of each color, so you always have 3. You shuffle those, you draw different ones every time, so you're gonna have different goals every time. Maybe you want to fill all the corners of the brain. Maybe you want to have as many colors in each section as you can. Maybe you just want to fill sections. Well, that is a points condition anyway in your scoreboard. Maybe you want to use as little coin as possible. You have a lot of coins but not use them, which is the security card, if I remember correctly. So the replayability is pretty good, and since it plays in about half an hour, depending how familiar you are with the game, you're just simply puzzling things out all the time, and that does take a bit of time, of course, but it is a lot of fun, and it is a game you're gonna want to keep replaying, I think, because, well, I highly enjoy games like this, and because of the different goals every time, you're gonna try different strategies and try different shapes, so that is really good. Finally, the language dependency. The game is mostly language independent, except for, of course, the gold cards. The gold cards do have a bit of text on them explaining what it is that you want to achieve, of course. So you will need to be able to read those, of course. So you know, a bit of an understanding of English is required. Also, the rules only come in English, at least in this copy. And the reference cards only have the English text on them as well. So there is some language dependency, but if you can find like a translated sheet, I'm sure one single sheet with all of those cards explained in your language is all it takes, so maybe you want to make that yourself. But technically the game is language dependent, so keep that in mind when thinking about buying this game or not. But all in all, I really enjoyed it. People I played this with enjoyed it as well. It's a pretty excellent game. I really like it, giving it 2 thumbs up. And again, I'd like to thank Allplay for sending me a copy to review. That was it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. That really helps the channel. Also, please check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below or the icon at the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.